Thank you. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Through the Keyhole, the show that gives you a first-class seat beside the firesides of the famous. Tonight, as always, we've borrowed the keys to two fascinating homes belonging to two well-known personalities, and with the help of St. Lloyd Grossman, we shall be taking a privileged peep behind closed doors. But the question is, whose? Well, to try and answer that question, sitting comfortably in our custom-designed dressing area, looking slightly double-glazed at the prospect, we have, firstly, a man who does an enormous amount of work on radio. In fact, he started his career working on 6 different stations, 3 railway and 3 petrol. Mr. Chris Tarrant. Secondly, the femme fatale of Fleet Street, here to get everyone's circulation rising, Miss Eve Pollard.
Thank you, David.
And finally, a very good talker who's also responsible for a very good listener, the editor of The Listener, Mr. Alan Corran. Well, now, with the help of the old magic keys here, we'll be taking a careful look inside 2 fascinating homes, and that should tell us something, maybe quite a bit, about the person who lives there. All that our friends over here have got to do is to try and work out who that is. So let's join young Lloyd now at house number 1. And watch closely, because remember, the clues are there as we go through the keyhole.
This big and handsome hall is a no-nonsense room, which seems to show a fairly business-like approach to life. It's certainly a room that sees a lot of toing and froing. Look at this Victorian railway station type tile floor, for example, designed for heavy foot traffic. This impressive Jacobean chimney piece has more woodwork than the average bungalow. This room is the nerve center of an international business empire run by a man with 3 arms. This is the room of someone who enjoys power and soft-boiled eggs. He's also someone who loves the sea, perhaps the ancient mariner. Well, at first, you might think that this is the sitting room of a very short drunk. In fact, it's the wine cellar of a connoisseur. It's very, very well organized, very methodical. And when you look in this wine list here, you can see that there are some real treasures down here. I think he was a bit of a sucker on this one, though. It's way past the sell-by date. An ice bucket for 2 bottles. Clearly, this gourmet enjoys sharing his enthusiasm for food and drink with his friends. And this is very much a room designed for entertaining on a grand scale. These walls are quite interesting. They're stretched fabric, ideal for staggering into, but they also show a love of interior decoration and a fanatical attention to detail. The colors are fascinating as well. They're very bright, very vibrant. They show that this person is larger than life, is quite a lively, noisy personality. So this drawing room comes as a bit of a contrast. It's very, very sober indeed, even though it's dominated by one of Elizabeth Taylor's earrings. Now, there are a lot of nice and interesting paintings in this house, so it's someone with an artistic temperament. But throughout, there is an underlying theme of business. Even the kindling in the fireplace is old copies of the Financial Times. These are real countryman's shoes, but this countryman, I suspect, is a bit of a dandy. Someone who's very concerned about his appearance. A clothes horse, perhaps. There's a huge fitted wardrobe here and a very extensive dressing table. Now, sometimes when he's not in a whirlwind of business activity, I think he likes to relax by flopping into bed and watching this huge television set. The bed is very, very lordly indeed. And there's no doubt that in this room, the owner of the house looking out over this magnificent landscape is the lord of everything he surveys. Let's consider the evidence. The set of egg cups, the newspaper kindling, the countryman's shoes. What sort of person lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, though not for our panel, here's whose house it is. So, as Lloyd would say, Chris, it's over to you.
He wouldn't actually say cross over to you, actually.
How does he say over to you? It's
Over to you, I think, yes. Very strange. Somebody, obviously, with a fair few quid, I'd say. Possibly not all of it earned honestly. Possibly someone who spent a lot of their life in prison. I don't know. I mean, things like the Financial Times sticking under the kindling wood in the fireplace were either a sort of throwaway Grossman clue or they were a red herring. I suspect they're not. I suspect it's very much a serious businessman who's made a lot of money from whatever he does. Someone who likes to drink a great deal. Someone, from the look of that bed, who's a bit of an athlete in bed, a bit of a raver. So it's a hard-drinking, wealthy businessman, a bit of a sex athlete. I think it's Dennis Thatcher. But it may be a wild guess.
Yes, I don't think the audience seem to agree with you yet. Eve.
Well, first of all, I thought all those lemons and beiges means he's probably a blonde. Not a natural blonde like Christopher, but, you know, helped along, perhaps. No sound. And he's an old fogey, or a young old fogey, because of those brogues. I mean, it probably takes about an hour to get the mud out of those little funny bits at the front of those shoes. And he's obviously learned about chin exercises, because, you know, we all know how bad it is for our chins as we get older, you know, to watch television in a downward slant. So if you watch it at the top of the cupboard, if you can still see that far, it's best for your chin. So it's obviously someone who cares about how they look, as well as making money and looking good and being attractive. I'm not going to talk about the bed because I would know nothing of such things. But he's got two telephone numbers. So obviously other people perhaps live in the house with him. Or perhaps he's got 3 arms and he can speak on both of them at once. I have no idea who it is.
I thought that was basically the conclusion you were coming to there.
Yes.
Alan is going to say
Well,
more.
I mean, it's interesting that Chris, who is really interesting, actually mentioned prison. Because I looked at it, you know, Chris, and I saw that light hanging over the door and those heavy charge room tiles and the mahogany coat of arms. Now, this is a madman who's built himself a private nick. It's very like a rural court. Then I looked at the 66 Petrus, which is currently being knocked out at about 300 quid a jar. And I didn't know whether he's someone who'd fallen in with sharp vintners or a bloke who really knew his claret. And I'm inclined towards the latter. And old Lloyd was pumping away at business. And I thought, what sort of man lives in, at a guess, East Anglia and runs his business? At a guess, East Anglia.
That's a very good guess, I suspect.
And runs his business from a rather nice, I think, possibly Queen Anne house. And old Lloyd, again, pumping on about the egg cups. I think this is someone who has something to do with poultry in East Anglia.
Now, this is... Alan Corran, QC, is on a roll here.
I think this is a beautiful man, or indeed a booful man.
It is. Will the beautiful Bernard Matthews come through the keyhole? Now, Bernard, the fascinating thing was they were nowhere there at the beginning. Now, Alan, what really gave you the clue there for that?
There aren't a lot of nice houses in East Anglia, but it was clearly
how
in
do you
East
know
Anglia.
it's East Anglia?
Because it looked like it. I mean, it felt like it. It just did. It came off it. I can't tell you why. If you've spent any time in East Anglia, no reason why you should, unless you're in the turkey business, but it just felt like it. And there are so few good houses.
Beautiful Beccles.
I thought, why would he carry out his business there? I think the egg cups, really, a bit.
Actually, Lloyd was helpful there with the egg cups, wasn't he, Bernard? Actually, it was very... But now, the name of the house is what? Great Witchingham Hall?
Great Witchingham Hall, yes, in the county of Norfolk. And I must disagree with you straight away. There's many reasons to live in Norfolk, apart from growing turkeys. It's a beautiful county.
Now, when did you buy that house?
1955, for £3,000, together with 30 acres of land.
How much is that worth today, do you think?
I don't know. I should think the rebuild cost on the house must be £1 million.
No wonder you can afford the booze. I mean,
When I first went there, I couldn't afford to booze.
Now, you started the business in 1950, and when you bought the house, you did the first incubating and rearing in the house, didn't you?
The whole process went on inside the house. The turkeys were hatched in what was the banqueting hall. They were then brooded. They spent the first 4 weeks of their lives in some of the 30 bedrooms. I had one of the bedrooms. I used to sleep in every night. They had the other 29. And they were then slaughtered, at the end of their lives, they were then slaughtered within the same house. So it all took place within this great house. And it really is obviously part of the success of our
Isn't that
business.
all very unhygienic, though?
No, it was very hygienic. We cleaned down the stairs once a week, just smelling nice and sweet.
But you started off with, what, 20 turkey eggs?
20 turkey eggs, which I purchased in an auction market in Norfolk. And from the 20 turkey eggs, I hatched 12 turkeys. I paid 20 shillings in those days for the 20 turkey eggs, and 30 shillings in those days for the paraffin oil incubator. Total expenditure £2.50 in this money, today's money. And out of that grew the company as it is today.
Did the turkeys watch the telly?
No, the telly was for me.
And who did the interior decoration?
Most of the colour schemes are mine. One of my hobbies is interior decorating.
And what about, in terms of the house, now presumably you're not incubating and rearing and clinging in the house. What goes on in the 80 rooms?
In about 1959, 1960, the turkeys moved out into the first of the 6 airfields we own in Norfolk. And from then on, we started to put accountants in the building. We've got about 60 accountants in the building these days, and I still live in a part of it.
Oh, I see. So you've got 60 accountants replacing the
Who would you rather have, accountants or turkeys?
Well, we don't have to use so much air freshener these days as we do with the turkeys at the door.
And also, the panel are convinced, by the way, that you're a raver. You heard that.
Well, yeah, but that was before they realised who the house belonged to.
Well, it's been a delight to share your house. Really, it's been a joy to have you with us, Bernard. And we'd like to present you with this memento of our visit and your visit here. Thank you for being with us. And on behalf of all non-turkeys watching, thank you very much for being with us. We'll be right back to see who's in part 2 in just a moment. Our thanks, right now, to Bernard Matthews.